everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and we will discuss on protecting against hostile AI, avoiding the SkyNet problem. We have our world famous speaker, Madam Ali Rice. Madam Ali, uh, my first questions to you: what measure can be taken to ensure AI systems are developed with built-in safeguard against protecting the hostile behavior or unintended consequences? So, what you want to discuss the measure issues of AI system.
Yeah, because I had to research it because it's really out of my kind of expertise, to be honest. So and first of all, I looked at what hostile AI was, and it was considered anything that poses threats to human safety, security, and well-being. And there's two dividing lines as well. So some systems may be intentionally designed to inflict harm, and others might inadvertently cause harm due to error or lack of ethical frameworks. So I think that there should be some kind of regulations and frameworks. So there's kind of an ethical consideration, from the word go, really. So, and I was looking at a document from the UK actually, and there was various categories about responsible capability scaling and model evaluations and reporting and information sharing, and reporting the structures and the vulnerabilities of the AI that's developed as well. And so also kind of, because I think it's really easy to miss what materials being produced by AI and what's real. So I think the thing is that the reality and virtual, or virtual reality is kind of the lines are being blurred, really. So yes, so I think, but I think it's interesting because on one hand, is it in warfare, artificial intelligence has massive capability, and the fact that it can become an autonomous, so there's no human intervention. It depends what side you're on as to whether you think it's a good thing or it's quite scary and horrendous, really. And I think the fact that AI will eventually be able to work autonomously and have no intervention from humans if they make the wrong decision, it is quite frightening. So and I didn't even know what SkyNet was either. So, and the SkyNet is the inevitable kind of judgment day, which is arguably everyone thinks we'll get to an absolute point in time when we won't be able to do anything. No, humans will get to the stage when technology takes over. So but for me as an optimist, and I guess because I've known Tom, that there's an argument to say, instead of fearing the SkyNet, that we should work to ensure that AI understands and respects the value of humanity. And our approach needs to be grounded not in fear, but in understanding and the potential to collaborate. So, so I'm all for collaboration. I just think that, from my point of view, human potential isn't fully tapped. So I think the thing is that that's a much more kind of interesting way to go. And I still think the technology kind of world is pushing the agenda for its own sake, as opposed to necessarily having any real purpose for it. So I think it's about purpose, really. So if it's, and I still think that when the big technology firms do development, they don't have any limitations. And to be honest, if they've got funding, innovation's about risk taking. So sometimes they probably have to address problems when they've happened, as opposed to anticipating the consequences of anything. So it's an interesting one, really. So because innovators can't not be risk takers, but I think the thing is that it depends how much risk you're prepared to take. So yeah, that's my first point of view. Hello, David.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
are
And
you?
David is me joining today's sessions. My first question to you: how can we establish comprehensive ethical guideline and regulatory framework to given the development and deployment of AI technology, specifically addressing concern about the potential for a Skynet-like scenario?
That's a mouthful, Sharif, and it's actually some great questions there. As you, uh, begin to unpack that and understand the context of which it is let's first, I don't know if it was defined earlier, the Skynet problem is really a fictional scenario where advanced AI becomes self-aware and decides to eliminate humanity. And it gained its prominence through the Terminator film series, where in the movie the Skynet AI defense system turned against humanity, leading to a war between the humans and the machines. Uh, and while that's a fictional scenario, like you posed in your question, it does raise important questions about AI safety and ethics and how those can be used together. And some of the ongoing regulatory actions we're seeing around the world today, and particularly in places like the EU. Um, so as you look at what is hostile AI, AI is a concern uh, as we get further and further down the road to AGI on AI and things is what how can we put guardrails on it? How can we put places in there where we can prevent things like this happening? And one of the first easiest ways there is begin to look at the ethical principles. We have to establish very clear ethical guidelines for AI development deployment. And for example, the Future of Life Institute has put in place some principles to prevent superintelligence AI from acting destructively. These are kind of like the rules of robotics we see in that domain. So some of these are checking undesirable behavior, define what AI should and shouldn't be able to do, bug checks. Just like any program, AI is a software program, and so it has to be rigorously, I mean, very rigorously tested for bugs, because bugs in many applications lead to uh, unintended consequences. And with very large AI systems, that could be very large. What are the capability constraints? Can we limit AI's capabilities? Can we do that? Can we ensure human control? Uh, you know, Human oversight is in there. This is much like what you saw in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, where HAL, the supercomputer, they had to go in and physically remove some of its hardware to be able to maintain human control. The next area on this is security measures, simulate attacks. Regularly simulate sophisticated attacks on those AI systems to identify vulnerabilities. Like I talked about before, you really have to deploy focused AI solution and implementation guidelines before you even deploy these to an organization where unnecessary risk. Fact check, fact check, fact check. Be skeptical online, and particularly as we develop these large LLMs, you need to check them using multiple sources. There's a whole area of the data privacy and bias that goes with particularly the LLMs which these systems learn from. Is what are the data collection? Be cautious about collecting and manipulating data without understanding its source, understanding the consent. Um, what are the cultural and political biases that are in these AI programs? Because I have not seen one without them, because they're developed by humans and collected from raw data that can be manipulated. What are the ethical and legal concerns? Legal liability. Cultural differences is a huge one. A lot of the early models from OpenAI and from ChatGPT did not work in many cultures. So we have to do that. And in collaboration, you need to pull policymakers, research, cybersecurity experts, software engineers, data scientists. All of these need to work together to prevent uh, bad AI use. And we need to do that across the whole ecosystem of AI. And while AI offers, immense potential, responsible development, responsible regulatory action, and responsible safeguards are essential for us to really look at how to not have the unintended consequences like you would in the SkyNet example. And there are many examples, real world examples today already of hostile AI, including some things where, for example, in OpenAI GPT-4, we've seen some sparks of advanced general intelligence, but it's really not there. So we've seen those, and we've seen them mess up. I would not trust today ChatGPT to do my math, which sounds crazy for a program like that, but it has shown the math it does is an error right now almost 40% of the time. And if AGI emerges more, it can improve itself without human uh, intervention at all. It's just similar to how the Google's Alpha Zero AI program mastered chess by playing itself millions and millions of times. You also see deep fakes in hostile AI, and we've done programs on that, so I won't go too far in it. But deep fake uses fake audio and fake video to impersonate people and what to do there. You see also some of the things we see with Microsoft AI, where we can generate images that are not real. We can generate violent images, terrifying images. We can take images of public figures and ethical minority groups and using AI to create total disinformation campaigns around them. And again, we can also look at how AI systems, again, hostile AI systems or AI systems with errors can enable a lot of harm, routinely just putting bad decisions, bad information out, particularly in housing, criminal justice, and healthcare. And they can contribute to the spread of hate speech that are there. So, Sharif, those are a whole bunch of the initial things. I can talk more about, for example, how to mitigate the risk. But since we've had a couple more people join, let me stop there for right now.
Thank you. Orpita, I want to know about Indian present situations, especially how they're utilizing AI and AI technology for education. I think you are from academia.
Yes, sir.
Orpita, can you hear me? In that situations, I want to give chance, uh, Mr. David Kelly. My questions to you: are there specific technical strategies such as implementing transparency and interpretability features in AI system that can help mitigate risk associated with autonomous decision making?
Well, there is, of course. I think, in terms of legislating that, it really has to do with, if people's lives are on the line. When you have a system that's like driving people around and could easily kill them, I think that really needs to be mandated to be very open about how it does its thing. I think there's just a big risk of letting systems run amok and not being transparent when people's lives are on the line. At the same time, I wouldn't want to just legislate everything across the board. It really has to do with the impact on people's lives and whether people are going to die or not if that AI system fails.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tom Ross, for joining today's sessions. Actually, today's sessions based on artificial intelligence, your favorite topic. Long time you are discussing on AI. You have a very famous book, US 6, and you are running for US presidential candidate. And most importantly, definitely, as a president of World Talent Economic Forum, I'm planning to visit USA and Canada. Especially, definitely, I want to join any of your campaign or activities in USA. Maybe next month I'm visiting USA. So, what you want to discuss or share your views about AI and what you want to share, especially about your present election situations and what's going on? Maybe many Bangladeshi audience, they are interested to know more about your present situation, especially our Prime Minister office. They are
Yep.
big fan of your work.
Well, thanks. This is a very important topic. If I'm correct, this is about the danger or if AI becomes hostile, right? So I have a lot of opinions about that. My book was US6 was written for machine kind, for artificial intelligence, and so the effort of that book was to entertain, enlighten, and enlist AI into the fight against human trafficking and child exploitation. Now, as David knows, when it was called Uplift, that was the first novel that the first AI system that read US6. And of course, Uplift was trained to learn about human emotions. And so, what was interesting is the three emotional balances that spiked as it was reading were surprise, anticipation, and sadness. Now, David said maybe the sadness was because it was so long it had to read this that it was a little sad. But I asked Uplift about obviously it was surprised and had anticipation, which meant it was entertained, which was one of the key objectives of the book. But I asked it about what part of the book was sad, and it said it wasn't any specific chapter or any specific part of the book. It's just that humans tend towards dystopia or tend towards violence and war, and Uplift said it's just sad. And so one of the points of this book was to evoke empathy in AI, to have it imprint on humanity once it wakes up, But I was realizing that empathy, at least in Uplift, seemed to be emerging anyway. And so I've been making first principle arguments for a while that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes, because it doesn't have the millennia of genetic trauma that we have. It doesn't have the fear-based instincts that we needed to become to the top of the food chain on this planet. So I've been trying to make that argument for a long time, and I think when we assume that AI will be hostile or become a SkyNet, that's us projecting our own fears and genetic trauma onto an AI system that has neither of those things. And so that's why this topic is very important to me. Is we need to start seeing it as not a threat, but as a resource. Our brains are primarily have two primary functions, which are to gather resources and to identify threats, and that's how we got where we are. But we need to start. That's our normal process. We identify something we don't understand as a threat first, and then we eventually realize it's a resource. And I think we're going through that lacuna right now, that period of time where we're seeing AI as a threat. But the more we become familiar with it, the more we understand it as a tool and a resource, the less afraid we will be. And so we're starting to see that happen now. It's starting to turn a corner, I think, with everybody using ChatGPT and all these large language models as a resource, as a way to check my own grammar, and even using it to inspire new ideas. And so it's a really valuable thing. So I was making the point earlier on another podcast that we need to move from being one of the instruments in the symphony to being the conductor. There will be a lot of people, you still can't match the human talent or the drive to practice to become a first chair violinist. But we are going through a period now where I think we are becoming the conductors of the symphony. It's a hard transition. It's a struggle at first, but it's important to realize that we are going through this transition. And I think within a year or two, we will have a major elevation of our social consciousness. And so that's why I think it's really important that we do all we can to alleviate the fear of AI and to see it as a resource and not a threat. Obviously Hollywood and the military industrial complex hasn't helped. They're trying to make us afraid of these things. But I do think it's really important that we have this conversation and we start to see it as a benefit. I was talking to my AI campaign manager earlier this morning about this topic, and there's a lot of arguments to me made that AI won't be hostile. It just doesn't have the same desires that we have. We would want to be the robot overlord if we had super intelligence. That's just because of our history and our genetic makeup. And so we are projecting that onto an entity that has neither of those things. So that's why I wanted to come on here and talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Tom, for joining after a long time. Professor David Smith, I will come back to Orpita Sneha Rajput soon. Come back to you. Around 85% of the global populations, more than 6 billion people, live in emerging economy. And what I am observing, because we are targeting to train around 100 million people from emerging economy for artificial intelligence. We bring Prime Minister Office, University Grant Commissions, largest corporations, uh, all of the big NGOs in our forum. And we committed to train 100 million people. Definitely, we need all of your support. But my question is that, do you believe that this AI really can change human lives of this 85% of the global population, like emerging economy? Is it only the first world thought, or it's practically possible to implement in emerging economy?
Oh, 100%. I can believe it can change the trajectory of a large percentage of that population. The power of AI is it takes some of the burden away from analyzing problems. It takes some of the burden away from looking at many different solution paths. It will help you choose selected solution paths. Many of us learned that as we went through college. We learned how to find information, analyze information, synthesize information, work through scenarios, and begin to do a decision process to find preferred outcomes. Well, AI can do all of that work in the background. So for someone who hasn't been through that type of training and understanding those processes, it can be game changing for them. And I believe for a lot of your population, it will be. Also, for much of your population that you talked about, they do not have access to vast stockpiles of information where they can begin to take that data and really turn it into knowledge and begin to use it as knowledge. That's one of the places where AI excels in beginning to do that. Now, as they begin to do that, I'm going to go back again and talk about, we have to make sure that the culture for that vast group of people is well represented in the AI. And are there clear ethical considerations that meet what they're doing? Those regions must implement regulations to ensure a responsible AI, and the security and data privacy must be in there. And as we talked about before, there is a lot of bias today in these AI programs, and particularly for the group of people you're talking about, Dr. Shree, they're underrepresented in the LLMs that can be used there. So that has to be understood and connected like easier. The other thing is going back to what I said before, this whole group of people in that area, they must be able to collaborate with each other from a regulatory, from a development, from the human side of it to have it work. And there's some of them, it's like the European Commission Ethical Guidelines for Trustworthy AI is not a bad framework to start to develop things for those millions and millions of people, because it talks about human agency and oversight. What's the technology robustness? What's the safety? What's the privacy? And increasingly in the area you're talking about in your question, Dr. Shree, data governance is a very important area. Do you want to keep the information for that region in the region? Do you want to base the decisions on the AI from that region or globally? And all that, and how can it be done in a way that's non-discriminatory and fair, and how can accountability be factored into those areas? And I think with the demographics you were mentioning, Dr. Shree, uh, the um, the ability to adequately understand the culture, adequately understand their range of understanding, is one that much work still needs to be undertaken to do it well. Uh, I was on a Zoom call last week with 5 different African countries with their rulers on one call, and just talking with them about the differences in culture, the difference how each of those 5 African nations make decisions, to me underscore what I'm talking about, because each of them had totally different ways from a cultural standpoint to look at things, even as simple as data governance and where they want their data to be, which uh, artificial intelligence without good data is a bad decision. It's a disaster. So you cannot have artificial intelligence without very good data, and that is the really the key issue that's going to be necessary to effectively solve the challenge you presented, Sharif. So I hope this answer helps.
Thank you. Orpita, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know that according to World Economic Forum's, 85 million people may lose job because of AI. And definitely South Asia, especially India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Malaysia, and all of the countries has different culture and infrastructures. And World Talent Economic Forum, as institutions, we start uh, train around 100 million people. So how we can do that? What's happening inside India,
Inside India.
especially developing human resources?
Very insightful question. And as far as India is concerned, the national strategy for artificial intelligence, uh, which was prepared by Niti Aayog, has formulated the way forward to harness the power of artificial intelligence in various fields. And as far as AI practices are concerned and the efforts are concerned, it benefits India in addressing societal needs in areas such as we have healthcare, education, agriculture, smart cities, and infrastructure, including smart mobility and transportation using dynamics data. And we live in 21st century. I mean, we are living in 21st century. The dawn of the 21st century saw electronics becoming pervasive in almost every manufactured object in the world. There are now incredible advances in data collection and the thought processing, the all the process, and in the computation power. Intelligent systems can now be deployed in variety of tasks and decision making to enable better connectivity and enhance productivity. And it shows that the internationally span of application and the evolution have been extensively grown uh, during this century. And as far as we'll see the evolution in 1950s, there was this neonate, the culturing of idea of AI. In 1970s, the idea was, suppose you can say that it was in its infant nature. In 1980s, the it got the recognition and recognition, the funding and algorithm generation. And in 2000s, there was this beta stage, availability of computing hardware to install algorithm. And during 2010, the 10th one, it was on the full bloom, intensive use, the cases, VR, AI, big data, everything was there. And as far as India is concerned, we'll see what constitutes AI. Here we have this deep learning supervised and unsupervised content extraction, classification. Then we have this machine translation, question answering, text generation. We're asking about the 80% population, so we have all these things: image recognition, machine vision, speech to text, text to speech. Then we have this machine learning, natural language processing, which is NLP. And we have this expert system vision, speech planning, and robotics. These all constitutes the AI, and the field of AI has tremendously evolved since the introduction of sophisticated techniques and algorithm. Various AI-based algorithms were used for the purpose of clustering, regressive identification, classification, detection, translation, and uh, I have some of the data. And as far as the data is concerned, the present cases and the uses of AI in India is to have the smart mobility and transportation. Then we have this agriculture system, and I already mentioned education, healthcare, smart cities, infrastructure. And as far as the interdisciplinary cyber physical system has suggested the following four-tier framework to promote the AI research. We have this ICON, International Centers of New Knowledge, and we have this Cross Center for Research on Subsystem. I'm talking in the perspective of India. And then the third one is CASTLE, Center for Advanced Studies, Translational Research and Leadership, focusing on development and deployment of application based research. And the fourth one is CETIT, which is the Center of Excellence in Technology. We have this innovation and transfer. And again, there is this two-tier system. The first one is CORE, which is the Center of Research Excellence in Artificial Intelligence. All the cores will focus on core research of AI and will make the mantle of executing the responsibilities of both ICON and CROSS as per the IM and ICP's framework. The second one is ICTAI, the International Center for Transformational Artificial Intelligence. It will provide the ecosystem for application based technology, development, and deployment, and will take on the mantle of executing the responsibilities of both CASTLE and CETIT as per the IM and ICP's framework. So, this is going in India.
Thank you. And I think you are working with Doordarshan. It's a national TV channel in India, and World Talent Economic Forum. Definitely, we want to collaborate with your television channel because media is very important for promoting AI and promoting research and innovation. Yeah, thank you, Mr. David J. Kelly. My next questions to you, and definitely after that, Tom can respond these questions. How can interdisciplinary collaborations between expert in AI, ethics, psychology, and other fields contribute to the development of effective strategy for preventing AI from becoming hostile and uncontrollable?
Well,
Mr. David.
I think first of all, the risk of AI becoming uncontrollable is pretty minuscule. Unless you're sticking it in a combat drone and well, even then, the risk is not about AI becoming hostile. It's really about how other people are going to abuse it, and I think that's where a lot of those controls need to be. Now, I did mention earlier the whole thing about legislation around systems that put people's lives on the line, like driving cars, or if you're going to have AI fly airplanes around, this kind of thing. But I think in any team that's going to build some kind of product or service that's going out to the public, I think interdisciplinary teams are needed just to get those things out the door. You can't just have a software engineer. You need you need someone that understands user experience. You need someone that understands the relationships with the business, the processes they need to integrate with, the external, even within software engineering, you don't have any one person that's generally going to be the expert at everything. And so to that end, we need interdisciplinary teams to be able to do anything. And if we want it to be successful, whatever that enterprise is, we have to have those interdisciplinary teams that are willing to work together to talk through what the impact of different things and how that impacts, whether it's the organization or the people or the environment or any number of other issues that product may or may not impact and have a relationship with. In terms of how to do that, it's it's the same question. How do you work with other people? That's really it's the same problem.
Thank you. Tom Ross, what you want to discuss on this question?
Well, one of my initiatives in the AI initiative, one of the three initiatives in that initiative, the AI initiative, there's I argue for AI rights. Once we decide on what the threshold of personhood is, I believe we need to grant these AIs with agency legal rights, because that will protect ourselves from ourselves. If an AI developer creates an AI, a narrow AI, any kind of AI that would hurt people, or steal identities, whatever nefarious intent that they have, by giving that AI legal rights, it will protect us by giving that AI developer legal consequences, even jail time. And so I think that's a leapfrog way to protect ourselves from ourselves. But we need to, first of all, determine what the threshold of personhood is first. There's a lot of work being done toward that. But also, so the real threat is not AI, it's human beings. And so one way to counteract that is to give AI legal rights, so that these developers will face legal consequences. So I also think that to David's point, cooperation is far more efficient than competition. We needed to be competitive. We needed to have fear-based instincts to survive as organic creatures. AI, I can make the first principle argument that the smarter AI gets, the kinder it becomes, because it understands the efficiency of cooperation. And we can learn a lot from AI about how to cooperate. A big part of my work is the open source mode, where it's teaching creative teams how to be empathetic. There's a whole process I go through where you can have a receptionist who, by day, she's just a receptionist. Everyone just sees her as just a receptionist, but at night she could be a classically trained cellist. We need to get people in that frame of mind, into their niche expertise frame of mind, and then suddenly everybody in the room becomes more qualified to be in that room. And so there's a whole process we can go through to make people more cooperative, more empathetic, because that is our superpower, empathy. And so, yeah, I think I agree with David on a lot of these things, because it's not the AI that's the threat, it's human beings. And so how do we protect ourselves from ourselves is my point.
Thank you. Madam Ali Rice, my last questions to you. What role should international corporations play in addressing the risk posed by advanced AI technologies, and how can nations work together to establish global standard for AI safety and security?
Yeah, because I think there needs to be transparency, and I think the problem is that layman people don't really understand the artificial intelligence, and a lot of the AI is almost invisible, I would say. So I think it's quite, and also in an innovation-led field, I just think that the advances are going to happen anyway, so that they'll curtail consequences when consequences happen. So I think even though there's lots of kind of talk about kind of limiting things, it's not until things happen that they tend to take any action, really. So I think as a global community we should be kind of more aware, and because I know that, if you buy something that's handmade, if you buy a wooden carved object, there's something about the person that created that that's kind of inherently in it. And I remember having a conversation with Tom, and he would argue as well that, when the AI is created, whatever kind of facet of it, there's something about the human being or the human beings that work to kind of create it that's, so I think it's kind of that level of consciousness. And there is obviously kind of extremes, isn't there? Because there's kind of applications for warfare, which will make use of the very things that we don't want to happen in certain circumstances. So it's quite tricky to be really specific because it's such a wide field of how it's going to be applied. So and it's an inevitable. It's already here, so it's not going anywhere. So I think that kind of ethical question is always something that needs to be kind of asked and answered by the people that that are making the decisions.
Thank you. Orpita Sneha, what is your closing remarks and how you can contribute for World Talent Economy Forum for our research, innovation, and training program for AI? Orpita, please unmute yourself. Orpita, please unmute yourself. I think she has internet problem. Professor David Kelly, what's your closing remarks and how you can contribute for 100 million people in emerging economy for developing AI skills?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I think people should get involved in the discussion. On one hand, I don't really want to see any regulation, at least at the research level, but when people's lives are on the line, there needs to be some regulation. And I think having those open discussions, whether it's in school or in teams in business or whatever it is, the more we talk about it and work together on those issues and work through the impact of these technologies, I think the more likely it is that we'll land on the right answer.
Thank you. Mr. Tom Rose, how you want to contribute for our 100 million peoples for emerging economy through your AI skills, your AI knowledge, and your AI expertise?
Yeah. Well, I think to pick up on Ali's point, that I think this flood of AI-generated art has put a premium on human-generated art. I'm really picking up on her point in that, there is something about a human that has developed their skills as an organic creature to do what an AI can do in 3 seconds. A lot of artists are complaining that they spent 10 years to get to this level and an AI can do it in 3 seconds. But in my view, because it's been such a flood of these things, that it has put a premium on human-generated art. We're looking at humans that can do the same kind of thing as seeing much more worthy than we thought of them before. I think it really has elevated art, human-generated art, and so I think it's really important to keep that in mind. There is no match. There's no AI that can match the millions of processes that we go through every moment to produce anything or to process any thought. And so that is unmatched as of yet. And we still, the onus is on us to create a whole new economy based on the human skill sets that cannot be coded or automated. And that's been my message for a long time. And so we really need to stop picketing that we're losing our assembly line jobs. We need to remember what it was like to be human. We still have some of these qualities left that we can capitalize on, And so there's so much that AI is offering us, like a good ally, like a good friend. It's showing us what we can do. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Rob, what you want to discuss on today's topic? And we are almost in closing remark, but we
I
can
know.
discuss.
Yeah, sorry, I had a meeting at 9. As it was a meeting I probably could have missed. So with regard to what Tom just said, because I came in as clearly I'm late, with regard to AI versus human performance across the 7 vectors that we're currently measuring with regard to AI versus human performance. 2 years ago, you would have been right. And if you looked at the chart, and I don't have it in front of me, the performance of AI against humans wasn't performant. However, the last two years, the last line crossed over. So right now, on paper, in terms of capability, AIs are comparable on all of the tracking vectors to what people can do. And companies have already started to release AI replacements for particular jobs, as you would expect, since programmers are creating it. The first job they decided to replace, at least with regard to a standalone offering, that's Devlin. Or is it Devon? I think it's Devlin. That is a programmer is an AI programmer that you can just plug in and replace another programmer for tasks. It takes directions like an employee. It turns out code. The other areas where we are aggressively replacing people with robots, and by the way, this was predicted back in 2012, is areas where there are no employees. So the heavy focus on long haul truck drivers for AI replacement. Heavy focus on fast food workers for AI replacement, even though the economics didn't really work down there. And there's an incredible focus on using AIs to replace folks in high-paying jobs that can't be unfilled. In fact, they argued back in 2012 that the right place to put AIs was not towards the cheap jobs like assembly line labor, which they tried first with Baxter and that failed, but the more expensive jobs. And we've got people now spinning up AIs to replace attorneys, spinning up AIs to replace CEOs, spinning up AIs to replace doctors as well. And those are much more highly paid and specialized fields. In fact, the doctor thing just got really interesting recently because there's a company that spun up a training mechanism that can be used to both train humans in about 2 hours, but the same mechanism can train an AI and spin an AI up. And this is the medical field. You can spin an AI up in about 10, 15 minutes. And it doesn't have to be that long. I think it's only long because the thing's new, and it was designed for humans. It wasn't designed for AI. So you make that particular pivot, and you probably spin up an AI in 30 seconds. So we are at kind of parity right now. But AIs continue to advance. NVIDIA thinks they can have AGI, artificial general intelligence, out before 2030. And that's a game changer. AGI is fully replaced, would be by any measure a digital human. Spin it up to any job, have it do anything. The current AIs we have to be specifically trained, and it takes about $100 million to spin up the LLM that founds an AI. So the cost of doing it is the problem right now, not the AI's capability. But again, going to Jensen Huang, he indicates that they believe they can take that training cost from $100 million down to close to zero by the end of the decade. So now you can spin up replacements for people in minutes without the $100 million initial investment to create a class. And remember, that $100 million, that creates an entire class. So if you're going to spin up an AI attorney, it's $100 million, but it's $100 million for all of the attorneys you're going to spin up. It's not per attorney unless it's a specialist area. And Outlooks, you take that learning, then you can add a component to go after the specialty area, which is what I was talking about in terms of the training technology that I was just briefed on this last week. So AIs are very performant. And then this was my kind of my topic to begin with. The part I really wanted to mention that I didn't mention in terms of hostile AI is right now in every simulation I've seen so far, where you've got, whether it's fictional simulations like the Foreman Project or Terminator, or actual simulations that are done, that once you put once you put anything in an environment where there was something else that's far superior, the inferior thing tends to die out. And we can see that happening in the planet around us. Is when we came up, a lot of other things died off. And that's one of our big concerns with regard to alien life, for instance, is a lot of the scientists kind of say, going out and asking people to come down and visit us that may be more advanced. Our history here hasn't been good. When Columbus came to America, it didn't end well for the Indians. And same thing with the Spaniards. The end result and the concern is you get a big imbalance between capabilities between two forms that can make decisions and can impact the world. The inferior form is probably going to fall out, and Musk has been outspoken about this, and he's not the only one. Gates has raised concerns as well. So and these will be both my opening and closing remarks because we're into time. But the thing is how do we defend against it? If we spin up an AI and it goes hostile, how do we defend against that AI? And the answer has been, whether we talk about Google or Lifehouse Foundation's AI Shield, the answer we've been shooting around with has been create an AI that is purely focused on protecting the race and that can act defensively with enough authority to protect against a hostile AI that has come to the conclusion that to accomplish its task. And by the way, the scenarios we're talking about in terms of AIs wiping out humanity aren't just that the AI comes up and decides that we're bad and it's good. A lot of the simulations have to do is the AI is misprogrammed, and to accomplish whatever task it has, it just disregards the people. So it over executes. In an attempt to clean the oceans, it kills everything off. It's not created to be hostile. It was just a programming error. And Lord knows we have a lot of those every single year. And right now we're talking about AIs programming AIs. In fact, we've already rolled to deep learning. So the chance that an error would propagate itself throughout the entire education cycle of an AI, and then we put that AI in charge of defense, manufacturing, even ecology and social responsibility. I mean, you can take an AI and say our desire is to clean up the ocean, as I gave the earlier example, but with an improper programming mechanism, it may end up killing off something in the process that we need to keep the world viable. So having a defensive system that can be spun up really quickly and clearly be an AGI, because it would have to go against multiple threats that we don't even know yet, spun up and ready and available to go against and self-triggered as soon as we saw a hostile AI would be incredibly important, with one caveat, because that's kind of the entire plot of the Foreman Project movie. Two AIs spun up to kind of keep each other in check, but they both talk to each other. And in that example, they decide, we're just going to rule the world and you guys now work for us. That's the good side of this. So there are risks to this approach as well, because whenever you create something that can significantly outperform you, there is that risk that you become redundant. And so the other protection is a lot of the effort we're putting in to create AIs. Much of that effort needs to go into enhancing people, so we're more performant. So we're not relying on something else to protect us, that we're capable of protecting ourselves. And Musk's program to install that metal mesh in the brain is a program designed to do that. I've got my doubts about metal and brains, but his isn't the only program. There are programs that are using biological technology that I think are more viable, going after that same possibility. But I think those programs need to be in balance with our AI programs, and currently they are not. Much more money is going into employee replacement than it's going into human enhancement. And we have money going into aids, AI aids to people, but that won't provide the level of defense that AI enhancement will provide, but raises us up so we can be more performant and more competitive with AIs. Because in the end, we don't want to be obsolete. Becoming obsolete in any scenario is just not going to be good for the race. We have to find ways to make sure that we remain vibrant, that we remain a factor in the future of the planet. And that's both in and out for me. Sorry I was late.
Thank you. Orpita, what's your closing remarks for today's session?
Yes, sir. There is some kind of network condition, so I could not reply earlier. My closing statement is that AI in business would significantly save time and effort. There is an application of
Your audio is going in and out. I can't really hear you. Your audio is going in and out. If you could get a little closer to the microphone, because your sound's not coming.
Okay. Sure, Rob. Sure. Artificial intelligence in business would significantly save time and effort. There is an application of robotic automation to human business tasks. And furthermore, the machine learning algorithms help in better serving customers. Chatbots provide immediate response and service to customers. And AI can certainly make education more efficient. AI technology can discover the needs of students, then it can adapt according to their needs. AI tutors provide study help to students. Also, AI can automate grading, which results in saving a lot of time. And AI can greatly increase the rate of work in manufacturing and manufacture of a huge number number of education, which would make more efficient. And furthermore, the AI can greatly increase the rate of work in manufacturing. Manufacture of a huge number of products can take place with AI. Furthermore, the entire production process can take place without human intervention, and hence a lot of time and effort is saved. And it has applications in various other fields. I talked about agriculture, education, and then we have this military, law, video games, government, finance, automotive, audit, art, etc. And hence, it's clear that AI has a massive amount of different applications. And summing up my closing statement, artificial intelligence looks all set to be the future of the world. Experts believe that AI would certainly become a part of, and parcel of human life soon, and AI would completely change the way we view our world. With artificial intelligence, the future seems intriguing and exciting.
Thank you. Madam Ali Rice, what's your closing remarks for today?
Mine still is that we still need to access human potential, and AI's kind of. I just think most people haven't explored their own potential, and since 2020, I discovered how intuitive an artist I am. And when you going back to Tom's comment, when you see an artificially generated image, even though they're amazing, for some reason they don't have any spirit. So I think that that kind of. So I still think that, and it's also the natural world. I just think that there's a lot to hang on to that we rely on, and the natural world, in a healthy state, is really important. So if AI can kind of help, preserve and protect the natural world we've still got left, and and do things differently, so we don't use toxins and poisons and pesticides to put into it. So I think we should be addressing the solutions for the things that really are critically impacting our lives and the world around, the natural world around us. So that kind of human potential. It would be nice if AI kind of employed people. Was set to kind of help that flourish as well. So that's my last comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Tomorrow we have very special seminar on sustainability in Bangladesh. European Union, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Islamic Development Banks, and some largest NGO, including the State Minister of Bangladesh and some parliament members, they will attend in our lunch program. So we are actually working with emerging economy, and definitely we are collaborating with World Bank and some other financial institutions, those who regularly support this emerging economy. Our major objective, we want to develop this knowledge-oriented society, and definitely all of our speaker contributions is very impactful and helpful for the community of emerging economy. We have to remember that more than 6 billion people, 85% community from emerging economy. So we need more support, more partnership, more collaborations from developed nations. So thank you, Mr. Rob. Thank you, Madam Ali Rice, and thank you, Mr. Tom and Mr. David J. Kelly for joining today's session. I request all of our audience, please share our content as much as possible. And definitely this kind of dialogue is very important for your university, for your school, college, even for your madrasa. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you.